Tonight we're diving into a tale that's part bedtime story, part fever dream, and entirely too loud for this hour. Unless, of course, you're trying to fall asleep to the life of one of rock's most chaotic legends, Ozzy Osbourne. Picture this: soot-covered brick houses crammed along narrow alleys, the damp scent of coal fires soaking into everything. It's Birmingham, England, 1948. A grey industrial wasteland where even the sun seems reluctant to show up. You can almost hear the clanging of factory machines in the distance and feel the grime clinging to every surface. Not exactly the setting you'd expect for the birth of a future global icon, but that's where our story begins. John Michael Osbourne is born on December 3rd, the fourth of 6 children crammed into a modest working-class home. No silver spoons here, more like tin forks with bent handles. His dad, Jack, is a toolmaker who works night shifts, and his mum, Lillian, handles the kids while punching the clock at a factory by day. Life is hard, noisy, and smells vaguely of boiled cabbage. Ozzy, he gets that nickname early, a cheeky twist on Osbourne, isn't the golden child. In school, he's lost in a sea of words that refuse to line up properly. Dyslexia. No one calls it that yet. Teachers think he's just lazy, and shy, and weird, and maybe a little slow. Kids can be cruel, and he gets picked on a lot. So he learns to laugh first, especially at himself. That becomes his armor. And weirdly, his superpower. Now here's where things get interesting. One day, someone, probably a classmate cooler than him, plays a Beatles song. She Loves You. Or maybe it's Twist and Shout. Doesn't matter. What matters is, his brain catches fire. Imagine discovering color for the first time in a grayscale world. That's what the Beatles do for little Ozzy. He doesn't just want to listen, he wants to be that. Whatever that is. But wanting to be a rock star in 1950s Birmingham is like wanting to be an astronaut on Mars with a paper helmet. Dreams aren't encouraged. Jobs are. And the louder your dreams, the faster they tell you to shut up and grab a wrench. By now, teenage Ozzy has already mastered the fine art of not fitting in. He tries out jobs like someone trying on shoes 2 sizes too small. He works as a plumber's apprentice. A horn tuner in a car factory. He even spent a few days killing cows in a slaughterhouse, an ironic foreshadowing of the animal antics yet to come. But nothing sticks. He's allergic to boredom and allergic to rules. A truly unfortunate combo. Then comes the theft. He's maybe 17 or 18, and he decides to break into a clothing store. Not a brilliant heist. No masks, no plan. Just a bored kid trying to impress someone. Probably. He gets caught almost instantly. Like, cartoonishly fast. And here's the kicker, he doesn't even have proper shoes in jail. They make him wear someone else's, and they're way too big. He walks around like a penguin on stilts. He serves 6 weeks. Could have been less if his dad had paid the fine, but Jack refuses. Thinks his boy needs to learn a lesson. Spoiler. He does, just not the one you'd expect. Now, prison isn't glamorous. It's dull, drafty, and smells like despair mixed with old soap. But Ozzy kind of likes the quiet. Likes the time to think. Not that he suddenly becomes an upstanding citizen afterward, but the experience shifts something in him. Like maybe, just maybe, there's got to be something better than bouncing between bad jobs and worse decisions. And so we leave this first chapter with Ozzy out of jail, still aimless, still odd, still fascinated by the Beatles, and still very much not a rock god. Not yet. But trust me, you probably won't survive what's coming next. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. School is never easy for Ozzy. From the moment he enters the classroom, he struggles. Letters won't sit still on the page. Words blur together. Back then, no one talks about dyslexia or learning differences. Instead, he's labeled slow, lazy, even disruptive. He sits in the back, silent and uncomfortable, watching other children answer questions he can't even understand. He feels different, and not in a way that earns sympathy. He doesn't raise his hand. He laughs along when classmates tease him, because it's easier to join the laughter than stand apart from it. Home isn't much of a refuge either, not because it's unloving, but because it's crowded, noisy, and defined by survival. His parents care for him, but with 6 children and long working hours, there's little time for nurturing dreams. And yet, amid all this confusion and disappointment, a spark arrives, almost by accident. Ozzy hears the Beatles for the first time on the radio. The sound is immediate, alive, and unlike anything he's ever known. The melody moves through him like a current. Suddenly, something makes sense. Not in words or definitions, but in feeling. It's as if a part of his mind wakes up, something that schoolbooks could never touch. He begins to imagine a different path. Not one of factory work or aimless drifting, but one filled with music. He doesn't know how to play an instrument. He can't read music. But that doesn't stop the dreaming. He starts saving up for a microphone, a small, concrete step towards something that might give him purpose. But real life continues to press in. After leaving school at 15, Ozzy cycles through a series of short-lived jobs. Nothing holds. He tries plumbing, but it's cold, wet, and unforgiving. He sweeps floors in factories, hauls crates, even works a few shifts at a slaughterhouse. The jobs aren't about skill or future, they're about money, even if the pay is meager. Still, the urge to do something more doesn't leave him. He's drifting, but always with a faint pull toward music, though it feels impossibly distant. And then, a mistake, clumsy and reckless. Ozzy tries to steal a television. He also attempts to rob a clothing shop. But there's no grand scheme behind these acts. They're the choices of a bored, restless teenager looking for direction and falling into trouble instead. He gets caught quickly and ends up in jail for 6 weeks. It's not a long sentence, but it leaves an impression. In prison, the days are dull and repetitive, but there's a strange clarity in that stillness. Ozzy starts to reflect, if not deeply, then at least with a growing awareness that his life is not working. The world is grey and hard, and he wants to find something bright in it. The dream of music doesn't go away. If anything, the silence makes it louder. When he's released, things don't change overnight. He's still jobless, still wandering Birmingham's grimy streets. But now there's something else stirring, a quiet determination. He begins talking with local musicians. One of them is Geezer Butler, a bassist with a similar sense of restlessness. They bond over their love of music, and their mutual desire to escape the future that seems pre-written for working-class kids like them. They start jamming together, experimenting with sounds, trying to figure out what they're doing as they go. There's no roadmap, no mentor, just amplifiers, guitars, and hours spent in cramped, dimly-lit practice rooms. Ozzy doesn't have training, but his voice, rough, haunting, and uniquely his own, starts to find its place. He's not trying to sound polished. He's trying to sound real. And slowly, something begins to take shape. This isn't fame yet. It's barely even a band. But it's the beginning of a new path, one that will lead him far from Birmingham's factories and back alleys. And although he doesn't know it, the journey he's starting will echo for decades. The boy who couldn't read words is learning to shape sound. And the world is about to listen. Ozzy returns to Birmingham's familiar streets after his brief time in jail, carrying with him a quiet restlessness that refuses to fade. The factories still clang, the fog still lingers over the rooftops, and the same bleak job listings paper the windows of employment offices. But something inside him is shifting. He's beginning to understand that the traditional path, steady job, slow climb, early retirement, isn't one he's built for. He doesn't resent it. Not exactly. It just doesn't fit. He tries again, dutifully, to hold down work. One job involves tuning car horns at a local plant, an endlessly repetitive task that dulls his senses by the hour. Another sees him working in a slaughterhouse, up close with the finality of death. It's a tough, blood-soaked business, and although Ozzy doesn't enjoy it, he remembers the details with eerie clarity. The smell, the sounds, the harsh lighting. These places feel miles away from music, but they leave impressions that will eventually make their way into the dark, heavy lyrics of his future. Still, he doesn't complain. Work is work, especially when there's rent to pay and food to buy. But he knows he's drifting, living in fragments. The hours pass, but they don't build toward anything. And through it all, the desire to make music grows louder. It's not a fantasy anymore, it's becoming a need. In the evenings, he wanders into local pubs where amateur bands play. He listens closely, studying how songs come together, how musicians communicate without words. He begins to talk with people who are in and out of small groups, experimenting with blues, jazz, even rock. It's all a little chaotic, but it's also exciting. There's movement here, creativity, even if it's raw. At some point in this haze of odd jobs and local shows, Ozzy crosses paths with Terence Geezer Butler again. The two had known each other from earlier days, and now, both are looking for more than the next paycheck. Butler plays bass. Ozzy wants to sing. It's a start. They team up with a couple of other musicians and call themselves Rare Breed. The name doesn't stick, but it's a beginning. The group doesn't last long, just a few rehearsals and some scattered local performances, but it gives Ozzy something invaluable: confidence. For the first time, he's holding a microphone and singing in front of people. And even though the nerves threaten to undo him, he doesn't back down. From there, another connection forms. A drummer named Bill Ward and a guitarist named Tony Iommi are looking for a singer. They've played in bands together before, mostly blues and rock, but nothing that's broken through. Ozzy's name comes up. Ward recognizes it. They'd gone to the same school, though they hadn't been close. Still, it's enough of a link to give Ozzy a chance. Their first meeting is awkward. Iommi isn't impressed at first. He remembers Ozzy as a bit of a misfit from school and doubts he has the voice or discipline to lead a band. But when Ozzy sings, something changes. His voice isn't conventional, it's sharp, mournful, and raw. But it cuts through. It's different. And that difference is what they need. They form a new band. At first, they call themselves Earth. They start gigging in small venues, covering blues standards and experimenting with original songs. The crowds are small, sometimes indifferent, but the chemistry within the group is building. Ozzy, Iommi, Butler, and Ward begin to develop a sound, thicker, slower, heavier than the rock music of the time. They don't know it yet, but they're helping shape an entirely new genre. During this period, money is tight. They share gear, share meals. Sometimes they sleep in vans or in borrowed flats between gigs. But none of that matters much. For the first time in Ozzy's life, he feels like he's moving forward. Not just existing, but building something. The music is his anchor, and the band, his direction. Still, they're not quite where they need to be. Earth is a name that fades into the background. It doesn't capture the atmosphere they're creating. One day, they notice a long line outside a local cinema. People are queuing up to see a horror movie playing inside, Black Sabbath. The title sticks with them. It sounds ominous, powerful, unforgettable. And just like that, the name changes. So does the focus. They start leaning into darker themes. They slow the tempo, add heavy distortion. Their music begins to reflect the gritty, uncertain world they know. A place full of factory smoke, economic anxiety, and a general sense of unease. It's not the flower-powered optimism of the late 60s. It's something colder, realer. Ozzy doesn't try to sound pretty. He sings like someone reaching through a storm. His voice becomes the final piece in a sound that feels almost cinematic, haunting and alive. They're not famous yet. Not even close. But something is forming. Something honest and strange and entirely their own. The boy from Birmingham is now the frontman of a band with a name no one forgets, Black Sabbath. It's 1969. The world is still swirling in psychedelia, flower power, and Woodstock idealism. But Black Sabbath is heading in the opposite direction. Their music isn't warm or hopeful. It's slow, heavy, and unsettling. Where other bands are singing about peace and love, they're writing about war, madness, and the creeping unease of modern life. They start performing under the new name, and right away it feels different. Black Sabbath doesn't just sound like a band, it sounds like an omen, a warning. And people notice. Not everyone likes what they hear, but no one forgets it. That, in itself, is a kind of power. Tony Iommi begins to shape the band's sound in a unique way. Years earlier, he'd lost the tips of 2 fingers in an industrial accident at a sheet metal factory. Most people would have stopped playing guitar. But Iommi adapts. He fashions prosthetic fingertips and down-tunes his guitar to make the strings easier to bend. The result? A thicker, gloomier tone that becomes the very foundation of heavy metal. It's a sound born of injury and persistence. Ozzy's voice sits right on top of it. High, eerie, and urgent. He doesn't sound like anyone else. His vocals drift above the riffs like a warning bell in a storm. And for the first time, he feels like he belongs, like the voice he's always struggled to understand finally has a purpose. The band's early shows are chaotic. Some audiences are confused. Others are mesmerized. Their lyrics explore themes of war, occultism, addiction, and social collapse. It's not performance for the sake of spectacle. It's a reflection of the world they see around them, raw, unforgiving, and often dark. Their first album, Black Sabbath, is recorded quickly and cheaply. Released in early 1970, it drops like a thunderclap. The title track, with its tolling bells and creeping tempo, sounds nothing like the rock music on the radio. Critics are confused, some even hostile, but the fans react immediately. The album sells. Word spreads. And suddenly, Black Sabbath isn't just a local band anymore. They follow it with Paranoid later the same year, an album that cements their place in music history. The title track, War Pigs, and Iron Man become instant anthems. They aren't polished, but they carry weight. The riffs hit like machinery, and Ozzy's vocals float just above the chaos, telling stories that feel both distant and deeply personal. As their popularity grows, so do the pressures. The band tours relentlessly, moving from country to country, city to city, night after night. The routine is exhausting, and the lifestyle around it becomes increasingly extreme. The road becomes a blur of performances, airports, hotel rooms, and long stretches of silence in between. Ozzy isn't a planner. He lives in the moment, driven by instinct and emotion. And with fame comes access to everything. The quiet boy from Birmingham is now a rising star with money, attention, and a growing dependence on alcohol and drugs to stay balanced, or numb. Still, the music keeps coming. Master of Reality, Volume 4, Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Each album darker and more ambitious than the last. They experiment with orchestration, layered production, and even softer moments. But always, there's that core, the heaviness, the tension, and Ozzy's unmistakable voice at the center of it all. He doesn't consider himself a great singer. In interviews, he often says he's surprised anyone listens to him at all. But that humility, paired with the emotional clarity in his performances, becomes part of what draws people in. He's not perfect. He's not polished. But he's real. Behind the scenes, however, things are becoming more complicated. Success brings pressure. Money creates divisions. Drug use escalates. Communication between band members starts to break down. Ozzy, in particular, begins to struggle with the demands of touring and recording while maintaining any sense of personal stability. There are moments of joy, spontaneous laughter in dressing rooms, shared victories in the studio, but they become fewer and farther between. The darkness they write about begins to bleed into their daily lives. Still, through all of it, the music continues to evolve. They remain creative, driven by instinct rather than strategy. There's no clear plan, just a shared commitment to following the sound wherever it leads. And for a while, that's enough. But the cracks are growing deeper. The tension is mounting. Black Sabbath is reaching the height of its influence, but the foundation is starting to shake. By the early 1970s, Black Sabbath is no longer just a band from Birmingham. They've become a force. Their albums sell millions. Their shows draw enormous crowds. And their sound, dense, relentless, and emotional, has carved out something entirely new in music. Without quite realizing it, they've helped create a genre, heavy metal. But success brings complexity. At first, they live like a close-knit unit. Touring brings them face to face with fans across Europe and America. They travel in battered tour buses, their equipment rattling in the back, sleeping in hotels that blur together after a while. They laugh, argue, and get through each performance by leaning on each other's energy. The stage is a release. Offstage, the pace becomes harder to manage. Ozzy's role in the band is unique. His voice cuts through the guitars like a signal in the dark, and his stage presence, part trance, part ritual, grows more magnetic with each tour. He's not trying to perform in the traditional sense. He simply pours himself into the music. People respond to it because it feels unfiltered, honest, even when he's barely holding himself together. Drugs and alcohol become a constant presence. At first, they're a way to take the edge off after shows or long studio sessions. But over time, they become something more consuming. For Ozzy, substances blur the lines between exhaustion and exhilaration, between loneliness and belonging. He drinks before shows, after shows, sometimes during. It's not always reckless, it's often quiet, part of the background. But it builds, and it begins to take its toll. Despite the chaos, Black Sabbath continues to create. Albums like Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and Sabotage show the band pushing themselves musically. They experiment with structure, tone, and even orchestration. There are moments of softness, even beauty, tucked within the darkness. Ozzy adapts with each shift, his voice finding new shapes to express fear, longing, confusion, and defiance. But tensions inside the band start to rise. Recording sessions stretch on longer. Creative disagreements grow louder. And Ozzy, never one to hold back, isn't always easy to work with. His relationship with Tony Iommi, in particular, becomes strained. They respect each other deeply, but their communication begins to falter. Iommi takes on more of the band's leadership, while Ozzy struggles with feeling out of sync. The world outside the band is changing, too. The music industry becomes more demanding. There are expectations now, about sales, tours, public appearances. Sabbath is no longer an underdog group playing grimy clubs. They're a major act, and that spotlight brings pressure. Management issues complicate things further, and their circle grows more crowded with people whose goals don't always align with the band's. Ozzy's substance use worsens. He begins missing rehearsals. He disappears for stretches of time. When he's present, he can still deliver stunning performances, but consistency is slipping. And the others notice. The loyalty that held them together is tested. During this period, there are still bright moments. Ozzy becomes a father. He marries Thelma Riley and tries to settle into a sense of normalcy. But the road and the recording studio pull him in opposite directions. And without structure, he struggles to stay grounded. By the late 70s, the balance is tipping. The band's 8th studio album, Never Say Die, is released in 1978. It's a project marked by fatigue, uncertainty, and misalignment. Some moments shine, but overall, it lacks the fire of their earlier work. Behind the scenes, the situation is growing untenable. Eventually, the band reaches a difficult decision. After years of success and struggle, they part ways with Ozzy. It isn't an easy choice. For Iommi, Butler, and Ward, it feels like the end of an era. But they believe it's necessary to keep the music alive. Ozzy, devastated and numb, is left to face the silence that follows. For the first time in a decade, he's no longer the frontman of Black Sabbath. The band that gave him a voice and purpose has moved on. He retreats, unsure of what comes next. At this point, many would walk away. The descent seems inevitable. But Ozzy's story is far from over. Ozzy doesn't leave Black Sabbath so much as fall out of it. One day, the rest of the band tells him he's out. It's not a dramatic shouting match, just a conversation that lands with quiet finality. For Ozzy, it feels like the floor giving way. Sabbath had been his identity, his structure, and, despite all the difficulties, a kind of family. Without it, he's left adrift. At first, he disappears into isolation. He checks into a hotel in Los Angeles and closes the curtains for weeks. He drinks constantly, eats little. The days blur into each other. The idea of starting something new feels impossible. His confidence has been gutted, and without the music, there's nothing to anchor him. But the silence doesn't last forever. There's someone else watching from the sidelines, someone who sees more in Ozzy than just the wreckage. Sharon Arden, the daughter of Black Sabbath's manager, has been observing him for years. She's seen the band's highs and lows and noticed that, even in the chaos, Ozzy still has something unique, something worth saving. Where others give up, Sharon steps in. She visits him at the hotel and finds him barely functioning. But she doesn't walk away. Instead, she offers him something simple, a new beginning. A solo career. At first, Ozzy is skeptical. He doesn't see himself as capable of leading a project alone. But Sharon is persistent. She believes in his voice, his instincts, and his potential to evolve beyond the band that once defined him. Slowly, Ozzy starts to engage again. With Sharon's help, he pulls together a new group of musicians. Most importantly, a young guitarist named Randy Rhoads. Randy's talent is staggering. His style is fast, fluid, and technically brilliant. More than that, he connects with Ozzy on a creative and emotional level. They trust each other, and that trust becomes the foundation for something new. Together, they begin crafting songs for Ozzy's debut solo album. The process isn't smooth, nothing in Ozzy's life ever is, but it's energized. Sharon manages the logistics, handles negotiations, and keeps the sessions on track. Randy brings musical structure and innovation. And Ozzy, though still battling addiction and self-doubt, finds a renewed sense of purpose in his voice. The result is Blizzard of Ozz, released in 1980. The album surprises everyone. It doesn't just work, it soars. Tracks like Crazy Train and Mr. Crowley quickly become anthems, blending heavy metal riffs with melodic solos and lyrical themes that range from personal confusion to mysticism and mortality. The music feels sharper, more personal, and oddly more focused than anything Ozzy had done in years. Audiences respond. The album sells well. Very well. Ozzy is no longer just the former singer of Black Sabbath. He's become something entirely his own. A solo artist with a voice that refuses to be quieted. The success of Blizzard of Ozz gives him a second wind. Tours are scheduled. More music is written. The band, Ozzy, Randy, bassist Bob Daisley, and drummer Lee Kerslake, starts to form a real unit. Sharon, now more than just a manager, becomes a central force in Ozzy's life. Their connection grows stronger, shifting from professional to personal. Her presence gives him something he's long needed: stability. But as always, with every step forward, there's an undertow. Ozzy's substance use hasn't gone away. Even as the shows sell out and the press praises his comeback, he's still drinking heavily. The energy on stage masks the struggles off it. There are moments where it seems like he might spiral again. But this time, there's someone nearby to help pull him back each time he teeters too close to the edge. More recording follows. The next album, Diary of a Madman, continues the momentum. Randy's influence deepens. The songs grow more ambitious, more musically layered. Ozzy's voice, once uncertain after the Sabbath split, is now sharper, more confident. He begins to trust himself again. In interviews from that time, Ozzy often reflects on how Randy changed everything. There's admiration in his words, and gratitude. Randy believed in him when he wasn't sure he deserved it. That kind of trust, Ozzy knows, doesn't come often. For the first time in a long while, things seem to be coming together. The music is strong. The band is tight. Sharon is beside him. And Ozzy, battered but not broken, is finding his way forward. But fate, once again, is waiting with something devastating. The year is 1982. Ozzy's solo career is thriving, and the Diary of a Madman tour is in full swing. The crowds are massive, the energy is high, and the band is locked in a creative rhythm. Randy Rhoads, with his precise guitar work and calm demeanor, has become more than a collaborator. He's a quiet counterbalance to Ozzy's chaos. The two of them, though vastly different in temperament, share something rare, a mutual respect that fuels their work. But behind the stage lights, things remain unpredictable. The tour is intense, the schedule's grueling, and Ozzy, despite his professional resurgence, is still drinking heavily. Sharon travels with him, often managing not just the business but also the emotional fallouts that follow the shows. It's not always glamorous. There are fights, mood swings, and moments of deep fatigue. But for now, the music keeps everything moving. Then comes a morning in March that alters the course of Ozzy's life forever. The band is in Florida, staying at a property owned by their tour bus driver. It's early, the air still cool from the night before, when someone suggests taking a few joyrides in a small plane kept nearby. Just a quick loop in the sky to shake off the fatigue. Randy agrees to go, along with the band's hairdresser and the pilot. Ozzy, still asleep on the tour bus, knows nothing of what's unfolding above. The plane makes a few low passes. Then, something goes wrong. No one knows exactly why. Theories swirl later, but no clear answer ever emerges. The plane clips the bus. Then a tree. And finally, it crashes into a nearby building. All three aboard are killed instantly. Ozzy wakes to the aftermath. The crash happens just feet from where he's been sleeping. When he steps outside and sees the wreckage, the shock hits in waves. He doesn't understand. Can't make sense of it. Just hours ago, Randy had been there, quiet, focused, always thinking about the next show. Now, he's gone. The loss is overwhelming. Randy was only 25. His talent, his discipline, and his friendship had helped pull Ozzy from a dark place. And now, just as things were beginning to feel stable, that light is suddenly extinguished. Ozzy spirals. Grief mixes with guilt and confusion. He drinks more. Tries to make it through each show, but the joy is gone. The band replaces Randy out of necessity. The tour has to continue, but the absence is unmistakable. Every performance carries the weight of what's missing. For a while, it seems like Ozzy might collapse entirely. But Sharon, once again, steps in. She doesn't allow him to disappear. She helps restructure the tour, protects him from some of the pressures, gives him space to mourn, but not to vanish. Slowly, Ozzy begins to rebuild. In the months that follow, he records new material, though it's clear the spark is dimmed. He moves forward because he doesn't know what else to do. The stage remains a refuge. The music, though now soaked in loss, still offers something to hold on to. One of the more infamous moments from this period happens not long after the bat incident. Ozzy, performing in Des Moines, Iowa, notices something thrown on stage. He thinks it's a toy. Without hesitation, he picks it up and bites into it, only to realize, too late, that the bat is real. The story becomes legend, distorted and repeated in tabloids and interviews for years. For Ozzy, it's just another strange chapter in a life already full of them. But underneath the headlines, there's a man grieving, trying to make sense of a loss that came out of nowhere, trying to stay sober, and often failing, trying to keep his voice steady when everything around him feels uncertain. Still, he records more albums. Speak of the Devil, Bark at the Moon, The Ultimate Sin. The sound evolves, the band lineup shifts, but Ozzy remains at the center. He becomes known not just for the music, but for the myth, the unpredictable performer with a wild past and a louder-than-life stage presence. Yet those who know him closely see more. They see someone deeply affected by tragedy. Someone who feels things more intensely than he lets on. Someone who has always found it easier to scream into a microphone than to sit quietly with sadness. And through it all, Sharon remains beside him, not just as a manager now, but as his partner. Their relationship is far from easy. There are arguments, breakups, reconciliations. But there's something enduring there. A bond that keeps pulling them back to each other. Ozzy moves forward. One album, one tour, 1 year at a time. But Randy's absence never leaves him. In the wake of tragedy, Ozzy leans on the only constant in his life that still makes sense, Sharon. Their bond, already tested by the madness of touring and the strain of addiction, begins to deepen into something more grounded. She's been his manager, his advocate, his anchor. But now, she also becomes his partner in a far more personal way. They marry in 1982, the same year he loses Randy. The ceremony is small and private, held in Hawaii. There are no pyrotechnics, no headlines, just two people who've weathered chaos, trying to create a space that feels solid. For Ozzy, who has lived most of his adult life on the road or inside a studio, the idea of family is something he's never been fully able to hold on to. With Sharon, It begins to take shape. They settle into a life that still revolves around music, but now includes something new: stability. Children follow: Amy, Kelly, and Jack. Sharon takes on the role of mother while continuing to manage Ozzy's career, somehow balancing both with a calm intensity that grounds the household. Ozzy, despite his unpredictable nature, leans into fatherhood the best way he knows how: through love, through laughter, and often through trial and error. But the pressures don't disappear. The 1980s music scene is volatile. Trends shift. Bands come and go. Heavy metal splinters into subgenres. Ozzy, now well into his solo career, has to keep adapting to stay relevant. He's no longer the wild card from Black Sabbath. He's a brand, a headliner, a legacy artist. That brings both opportunity and expectation. The next several albums reflect that tension. Bark at the Moon introduces Jake E. Lee on guitar, a new dynamic, a new style. The music is sharp, more theatrical, but still unmistakably Ozzy. The title track becomes a classic, its snarling energy matched by a music video that leans into the gothic imagery fans have come to associate with him. But behind the scenes, the old habits remain. Ozzy continues to battle addiction. The substances change, sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes pills, but the pattern is familiar. He gets clean, slips back, tries again. Sharon helps manage the worst of it, checking him into rehab more than once. He tries, often sincerely, to stay on track. But addiction is never simple, and recovery is rarely a straight path. There are moments that test their relationship beyond what most marriages could bear. One incident, years later, results in Ozzy being arrested after a violent outburst during a drinking binge. He speaks about it with regret in later interviews, acknowledging how close he came to losing everything. Sharon forgives him, but the boundaries become clearer. She loves him, but she also holds him accountable. The music continues. The ultimate sin brings new success, and with it, new challenges. Ozzy is now a veteran in a genre he helped invent. Younger bands look up to him, emulate his style, even open for his tours. He becomes a symbol of the old guard, still wild, still loud, still relevant. But the weight of that status is heavy. Despite all this, Ozzy never loses his connection to the fans. His shows remain electrifying, fueled not just by theatrics but by sincerity. When he steps on stage, it isn't an act. It's an extension of who he is. The chaos, the passion, the strange sense of humor, it's all there, live, raw, unfiltered. And fans respond with devotion. They scream his lyrics back to him. They tattoo his name on their bodies. They wait in lines for hours just to catch a glimpse. Meanwhile, his children are growing. Life at home is more settled than it's ever been. Sharon manages the household with structure and discipline, giving the family a sense of rhythm that Ozzy, left to his own devices, might never have maintained. He's not always the most traditional father, but he's present. And when he isn't touring, he devotes his energy to simply being with his kids. His relationship with Sharon continues to evolve. She isn't just his wife or his manager, she's his collaborator in the truest sense. Together, they steer the Ozzy Osbourne name through a changing industry, adapting with each twist and turn. She helps make strategic decisions. He brings the heart, the voice, the history. It works, because neither tries to be what they're not. Through the late 80s, the public image of Ozzy solidifies into something larger than life. He's the Prince of Darkness, the godfather of metal. But behind closed doors, he's also just a man, imperfect, loving, anxious, sometimes lost. Still, he moves forward. The concerts continue. The albums get made. The family grows. And the storm that once defined him begins, slowly, to calm. By the early 1990s, Ozzy Osbourne is both a legend and an outlier. Grunge has exploded out of Seattle, ushering in a new era of sound. Bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam dominate the airwaves, and the polished, theatrical metal of the 80s is suddenly seen as dated. Many artists from Ozzy's generation begin to fade quietly into the background, unable to adapt. But Ozzy is not most artists. Instead of retreating, he doubles down. In 1991, he releases No More Tears, an album that feels like a reintroduction. It's heavier, more melodic, and deeply personal. The title track, anchored by a haunting bass line and sprawling solos, strikes a chord with listeners who may not have followed Ozzy since the Sabbath days. Mama, I'm Coming Home, a heartfelt ballad written with Lemmy from Motorhead, shows a softer side. It's a song about return, about regret, about love. It becomes one of his biggest hits. At this point, Ozzy is beginning to feel the weight of his own legacy. He's been on the road, in the studio, and in the public eye for over 2 decades. His body is tired. His voice is weathered. The chaos, while still present, has become harder to outrun. So in 1992, he announces that the upcoming tour will be his last. It's dubbed the No More Tours Tour, a farewell to the madness, or so everyone thinks. The truth is, Ozzy loves performing too much to walk away. He returns to the stage in 1995 with Osmosis, another strong entry in his catalogue. The title alone hints at what's happening, a kind of absorption, a blending of who he's been with who he's becoming. The album features introspective tracks like Perry Mason and See You on the Other Side, touching on themes of identity, spirituality, and mortality. You can hear the weariness in his voice, but also the resilience. By now, Ozzy has grown into something beyond the music. He's a cultural figure, an icon who somehow never fades, even as trends pass him by. Younger artists continue to cite him as an influence, and fans from 3 generations now crowd into his shows. Then, in 1996, Sharon has an idea, one that seems strange at first, but will end up redefining their place in pop culture. She launches Ozzfest, a touring music festival that blends legacy acts with up-and-coming metal bands. It's a gamble. No one's quite sure if fans want this mix of old and new. But it works. More than that, it thrives. Ozzfest becomes a landmark event, year after year, giving bands like Slipknot, System of a Down, and Linkin Park a massive platform while keeping Ozzy right at the center of it all. Through Ozzfest, Ozzy not only preserves his relevance, he amplifies it. He becomes a bridge between generations of metal, a symbol of what it means to endure, to adapt, to never let the music fade. He introduces each act personally, walks among the fans, and performs with a raw energy that defies his age. But fame, as always, is a double-edged sword. Behind the scenes, Ozzy continues to struggle with sobriety. He goes in and out of rehab. Some days are better than others. The weight of expectation, of always being Ozzy, takes a toll. But there is also a quiet determination forming. He's older now. The stakes feel different. He wants to be around for his children. He wants to make the most of the life he's somehow survived. And at home, the family dynamic is shifting. Kelly and Jack, now teenagers, are growing up in a household that is anything but ordinary. Cameras are starting to appear, at first for fun, then as part of a new experiment. Sharon pitches a reality show, and in 2002, the Osbournes premieres on MTV. It's raw, absurd, intimate, and a phenomenon. Viewers are captivated not just by the chaos, but by the honesty. Ozzy, muttering through daily frustrations. Sharon, managing everyone with sharp wit. Jack and Kelly, navigating teenage life with cameras rolling. It's not the version of celebrity Ozzy ever expected, but it brings him closer to an entirely new audience. People who had never listened to Sabbath or No More Tears, but who now feel like they know him. He becomes more than a rock star. He becomes a symbol of survival. A man who's seen and done it all and still wakes up each morning, maybe confused, maybe grumbling, but still there. And through all of it, the music never really stops. The early 2000s usher in a new chapter for Ozzy, one that's less about the music itself and more about the life behind it. The success of the Osbournes brings fame of a different kind. Suddenly, Ozzy isn't just a heavy metal icon, he's a television personality, a cultural oddity, and a figure the whole world seems fascinated by. The cameras follow him into his home, capturing moments of tenderness, frustration, and unexpected vulnerability. This reality show doesn't sugarcoat his life. It shows his struggles with addiction, his battles with health, and the ups and downs of being a father and husband. Viewers see the man behind the myth, a man who's imperfect but genuine. The show's success surprises everyone, including Ozzy himself. It wins awards, becomes a defining pop culture phenomenon, and catapults his family into the spotlight. For Ozzy, it's a mixed blessing. The constant presence of cameras adds pressure. Privacy becomes a rare commodity. Yet, it also brings a sense of connection he hadn't felt in years. Fans now see him not just as the wild frontman but as a relatable human being. The vulnerability is real, and it resonates. Meanwhile, Ozzy continues to record and tour, balancing his dual identities. Albums like Down to Earth, 2001, and Black Rain, 2007, showcase a matured sound, still heavy, still personal, but with a refined edge. Collaborations with producers like Tim Palmer and artists like Zakk Wylde help keep the music fresh. The lyrics reflect a man who's lived a full, sometimes harrowing life, grappling with fame, family, and survival. Physically, Ozzy faces new challenges. Years of substance abuse, relentless touring, and the wear of age catch up. He suffers several serious health scares, including a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease in later years, a condition he initially keeps private. The diagnosis forces him to confront his mortality in a way he hadn't before. The relentless energy that fueled his early career has to be tempered with rest, treatment, and acceptance. Despite these hurdles, Ozzy remains determined. He continues to perform, record, and connect with fans around the world. His shows, while sometimes shorter and less intense than in his youth, still carry that unmistakable spirit, the raw honesty and passion that defined him from the start. His relationship with Sharon remains a constant. Together, they navigate the complexities of health, fame, and family. Sharon's steady presence supports Ozzy in ways that go beyond management or marriage. It's a partnership built on decades of shared history, resilience, and love. Ozzy's children grow into adults with their own careers and struggles. Kelly pursues music and television, Jack builds his own band, and Amy finds her path as well. Family gatherings are sometimes chaotic, but they're full of warmth, a reminder that, despite everything, the Osbourne family endures. And through it all, Ozzy's story continues, a testament to the power of reinvention, of persistence, and of finding meaning even when the road gets dark. The music lives on. The legend endures. As the years advance into the 2010s, Ozzy Osbourne's legacy takes on a new dimension. No longer just the wild frontman or the reality TV star, he becomes a symbol of endurance in an industry that rarely shows mercy. His name is synonymous with heavy metal's birth, but also with survival against all odds. This period is marked by reflection and reinvention. Ozzy embraces collaborations that connect him with a younger generation of musicians and fans. He works with artists like Post Malone, blending metal with contemporary sounds in unexpected ways. These partnerships surprise some longtime fans but also open doors to new audiences, demonstrating Ozzy's willingness to evolve and stay relevant. Despite his ongoing health struggles, including his public battle with Parkinson's disease, Ozzy remains active. He announces multiple farewell tours, often joking that this time he really means it. But the stage keeps calling. For Ozzy, performing is not just a job, it's a lifeline. In interviews, he speaks candidly about aging, regret, and gratitude. The reckless years of excess have left scars, both physical and emotional. Yet, he's also profoundly thankful for the chance to keep sharing his voice. The pain and hardship have given his music a depth that resonates with people across generations. Family remains central. Sharon, his partner and manager, is more vital than ever, helping him navigate the complexities of healthcare and the business side of his career. Their bond has weathered decades of turmoil and triumph, standing as one of rock's most enduring partnerships. Ozzy's children continue to carve their own paths, often intersecting with music and entertainment. The Osbourne name carries weight, but each family member approaches it in their own way, sometimes embracing it, sometimes rebelling against it. Culturally, Ozzy's influence remains vast. Documentaries, biographies, and tributes celebrate his role as the godfather of heavy metal. New generations discover Sabbath and Ozzy's solo work with fresh ears, often amazed at how the sound that once shocked the world still feels vital. His life story, filled with highs and lows, brilliance and chaos, becomes almost mythic. Yet, Ozzy himself often insists he's just a regular guy who made some noise and got lucky. It's that humility, wrapped in decades of hard-earned experience, that endears him to fans. As Ozzy looks ahead, there's an awareness of time's passage but also a determination to continue making music and connecting with people. The show, he says, goes on, not because he can't stop, but because he doesn't want to. Through illness, loss, fame, and reinvention, Ozzy Osbourne's journey is a testament to the enduring power of music and the human spirit. Ozzy's life is a patchwork of moments, some loud, some quiet, that together tell a story of resilience. Even as the world around him shifts, he remains rooted in the music that first gave him purpose. His passion for performing never fades, even as the body slows. The 2010s bring more public revelations about his health. Diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, Ozzy faces new challenges. The tremors, fatigue, and difficulty with movement contrast sharply with the image of the energetic rock star belting out anthems to roaring crowds. But Ozzy refuses to be defined by illness. Instead, he confronts it head-on, sharing his journey with fans and raising awareness. His openness offers a new layer of connection, one that's less about spectacle and more about humanity. The vulnerability is striking. Here is a man who once seemed invincible, now showing the fragile side of life. At the same time, Ozzy continues to tour, carefully and thoughtfully. Shows are scaled to accommodate his needs, but the energy remains. When he steps on stage, the audience feels the weight of decades behind him. Each song is a chapter of his life, played out live. The fan base spans generations. Longtime followers sing along to Sabbath classics and solo hits, while younger listeners discover him through collaborations and the legacy left behind. It's a rare kind of longevity that few artists achieve. Offstage, Ozzy's family life remains complex but loving. He and Sharon celebrate decades together, having faced trials that would have broken most couples. Their partnership is a blend of business acumen and deep affection, an unspoken agreement to keep each other grounded. Their children continue to grow, sometimes following in their father's footsteps, sometimes forging different paths. The Osbourne family is a reminder that even legendary figures wrestle with everyday struggles, relationships, and growth. In interviews, Ozzy often reflects on how far he's come. The reckless young man from Birmingham is gone, replaced by someone shaped by experience and time. He speaks about the importance of gratitude, of taking each day as it comes, and of the joy he still finds in music. Looking back, it's clear that Ozzy's story isn't just about the highs and lows of fame. It's about survival, about finding purpose in the chaos, about the power of music to heal, to connect, and to endure. And as night falls and the world grows quiet, the echoes of his voice linger, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there's light to be found. The story of Ozzy Osbourne is as much about transformation as it is about endurance. From his early days growing up in the industrial heart of Birmingham to becoming one of the most recognizable voices in rock history, his journey reflects constant change, both external and internal. In his youth, Ozzy's world was defined by working-class struggles. The harsh realities of post-war England shaped his outlook. School wasn't a refuge, it was a challenge. Jobs were hard to come by, and the music scene was just starting to take shape. But even then, music offered a kind of escape, a language that could express what words alone could not. When Black Sabbath formed, the band tapped into the unease of the era. Their sound captured the fears and frustrations of a generation facing economic uncertainty, political tension, and the shadow of war. They weren't trying to be villains, they were storytellers, reflecting a world that was often dark and uncertain. Ozzy's voice became the vessel for those stories. It was raw and emotional, sometimes unsettling, but always sincere. His stage presence was magnetic, blending innocence with unpredictability. That combination made him unique. As fame grew, so did the pressures. The life of a rock star was intoxicating but unforgiving. Ozzy's struggles with addiction were intertwined with his rise. They threatened to destroy him but also fueled his creativity in complex ways. His solo career proved his resilience. Losing Randy Rhoads was a devastating blow, but Ozzy continued to push forward, reinventing himself with each album. The partnerships he formed, especially with Sharon, offered stability and support, helping him navigate an industry that often chewed up and spit out artists. Through reality TV and unexpected collaborations, Ozzy demonstrated a surprising adaptability. He was never content to rest on past glories. Instead, he embraced new opportunities, sometimes awkwardly, but always with sincerity. His health battles later in life revealed a vulnerability rarely seen in rock legends. Yet, even as Parkinson's disease affected him, he continued to perform and record, embodying a fierce determination to live on his own terms. Ozzy's story is also a family story, of love, struggle, forgiveness, and growth. His marriage to Sharon and his relationships with his children have been a constant thread, weaving through the chaos and grounding him in ways only family can. Ultimately, Ozzy Osbourne's life is a testament to the human capacity for reinvention. A working-class kid who became a global icon, whose voice defined a genre, who faced darkness and found ways back into the light. The chapters of his life are still being written. And through it all, the music remains, a powerful soundtrack to a life lived loudly, deeply, and unapologetically. As the new decade unfolds, Ozzy's influence reverberates not just through music but across popular culture. His name has become shorthand for rebellion, survival, and authenticity. From Halloween costumes to video game soundtracks, his legacy has permeated far beyond the concert stage. Even as he slows down, his presence remains electric. He continues to inspire musicians worldwide, who see in him a blueprint for endurance. Young artists study his catalog, dissect his vocal style, and cite him as a formative influence. In many ways, Ozzy has transcended the role of musician to become a cultural touchstone. His ongoing health challenges, including his openness about Parkinson's disease, have helped destigmatize conversations about chronic illness, especially among men in the public eye. His honesty encourages fans to confront their own vulnerabilities with courage. Family continues to be a priority. He and Sharon celebrate decades together, their relationship evolving into a rare partnership in the often turbulent world of rock. Their mutual respect and shared history form the foundation of a steady anchor. Ozzy's children, now adults, carry forward the Osbourne name with their own careers and endeavors, often collaborating and supporting each other in their artistic and personal lives. Despite the inevitable ups and downs, the family unit remains tight-knit. Meanwhile, Ozzy's occasional performances and recordings serve as reminders that his voice still carries power. When he steps on stage, there's a palpable connection, a shared understanding between artist and audience that transcends age and time. Reflecting on his journey, Ozzy often speaks about the importance of gratitude and the unpredictability of life. He acknowledges the mistakes and missteps, but also the moments of grace and redemption. In quiet moments, away from the spotlight, he enjoys the simple pleasures, a good meal, time with family, the occasional game of golf. These are the rhythms that balance the chaos he once lived in. Ozzy's story reminds us that life is messy, complicated, and often unpredictable. But through it all, there is music, raw, honest, and unyielding, that keeps us moving forward. And as the years go by, his voice continues to echo, a timeless testament to the power of passion and perseverance. In the quiet moments of reflection, Ozzy Osbourne's life reveals itself as a tapestry woven with threads of resilience, reinvention, and raw human spirit. From the gritty streets of Birmingham to stages around the world, his journey has been anything but ordinary. The battles with addiction, loss, and health struggles could have ended the story prematurely. Yet, Ozzy's determination to keep moving forward is a defining characteristic. He doesn't just survive, he adapts, he grows, he finds new ways to express himself. His music, which once shocked audiences with its darkness and intensity, now carries layers of wisdom and experience. It's a chronicle of a man who has seen both the light and shadow of fame, who has loved deeply, lost painfully, and found moments of peace in the chaos. Family remains his anchor. Sharon's steadfast support and the bonds with his children have given Ozzy a foundation that no amount of fame or fortune could provide. Their presence offers balance in a life defined by extremes. Though his health may limit some of his physical abilities, his spirit remains undiminished. He continues to inspire, not just through his music, but through his openness about vulnerability and perseverance. As the world turns and new generations discover his work, Ozzy's legacy grows richer. His influence stretches across genres and cultures, reminding us that the power of music lies not just in sound, but in the stories it tells and the lives it touches. And now, as the night deepens and the world settles into quiet, Ozzy's story settles with you, a lullaby of triumph and struggle, reminding you that even the wildest journeys can find their way home. The day fades gently into night, You feel the tension in your body soften as your mind drifts with the rhythm of Oz's life, a story of grit and grace, of chaos tamed by persistence. Imagine the smoky stages, the roaring crowds, the quiet moments backstage where dreams and doubts mingle. The voice you've followed so far becomes a soothing hum, carrying you through the echoes of time. Every note, every word, is a step deeper into calm. You don't need to chase the highs or resist the lows. Just breathe, settle, and allow the story to lull you into rest. Remember, every life, no matter how wild, carries a rhythm. Yours now slows, matching the soft pulse of the night. The music fades, but the peace remains. Sleep well. Dream gently.